00 hours. The jungle air hangs heavy with the scent of rotting vegetation and damp earth. A single figure steps onto a logging trail, rifle slung over his shoulder, a peculiar curved tube resting in his hands. To the enemy watching from the tree line, this looks like absurdity. The weapon is short. It lacks a magazine. It resembles a piece of plumbing hardware more than an instrument of war. The North Vietnamese army, hardened by years of fighting American firepower, dismisses the sight with a sneer. They mock it as the Thumper or the Blooper, believing they are facing a toy. You might think that underestimating an adversary is a fatal error in any conflict. But in Vietnam, arrogance often masquerades as tactical assessment. The M79 grenade launcher was designed by engineers who understood that small arms fire often failed to suppress entrenched positions. It fired 40mm high-explosive rounds with a range of 375 meters. It was a calculated application of explosive force to a problem that bullets could not solve. The mockery was real, documented in after-action reports and soldier diaries alike. But the lethality was also real. The gap between what the enemy expected and what they received was measured in lives. If I got something wrong, or left something out, that's what the comments are for. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Like the video if you want more deep dives into the engineering of war. The design philosophy behind the M79 was brutally simple. Previous grenade launchers were attachments to rifles, cumbersome and inaccurate. The new weapon was a standalone device, single shot, break action. It weighed 9 pounds and 10 ounces. The barrel was curved to accommodate the ballistic trajectory of the grenade. The firing pin was a simple spring-loaded mechanism, constructed of steel, springs, and explosives. It contained no complex electronics or digital sights. This simplicity was its strength. It could be fired while wet, muddy, or clogged with debris. It could be repaired with a knife and a bit of wire. The enemy, accustomed to sophisticated American technology, assumed complexity equaled capability. They did not understand that reliability often comes from reduction. The M79 was not designed to win dogfights or take out tanks. It was designed to break the morale of infantry squads hiding in foxholes. The psychological impact of a high-explosive round landing nearby, without the warning crack of a rifle shot, was profound. The sound of the launch was a distinct whoosh, followed by a delayed boom. It gave the defender time to brace, but not enough time to escape. The first time we heard it, we thought it was a rock falling from the canopy, wrote one NVA veteran in a memoir published decades later. Then the world went white. That white flash was the result of 50 grains of TNT propelling a 2-ounce warhead. The fragmentation pattern was dense, lethal within 10 meters. The weapon forced the enemy to keep their heads down. It denied them the use of the terrain they claimed as their own. The mockery began to fade as the casualties mounted, but the initial dismissal had already been codified in propaganda and field manuals. The Americans, for their part, embraced the weapon with enthusiasm. It gave the infantryman a capability previously reserved for artillery or air support. It changed the dynamics of small unit engagements. A single soldier could now deliver indirect fire with reasonable accuracy. The trade-off was rate of fire. Reloading took seconds. In a firefight, those seconds could be the difference between life and death. The soldier carrying the M79 had to be protected. He became a high-value target. The weapon created a new role in the squad structure. The grenadier was not just a rifleman with a different gun. He was a mobile artillery piece. You have to understand the context of the war to appreciate the weapon. The United States was fighting an enemy that refused to hold ground in traditional battles. They vanished into the jungle, leaving behind booby traps and ambushes. The M79 was a response to this elusive foe. It allowed American troops to project power into the dense foliage where visibility was zero. It forced the enemy to react. The initial mockery was not just pride, it was a cognitive bias. The enemy saw a short, crude weapon and assumed it was ineffective. They did not account for the explosive yield. They did not account for the psychological shock. The data would eventually show that the M79 was one of the most feared weapons in the American arsenal. But data does not stop a bullet. The men who carried the weapon knew its limitations. They knew it could jam. They knew it was heavy. They also knew it worked. The story of the M79 is not just about engineering. It is about the clash of perceptions. The enemy thought they had found a weakness. Instead, they had walked into a trap. The trap was a miscalculation of American intent. The Americans were not trying to impress with technology. They were trying to kill efficiently. The M79 was the perfect expression of that intent. It was ugly, loud, and deadly. and it would soon prove that the mockery was the last thing the enemy would do. The curved barrel is the first thing you notice. It looks like a question mark forged from steel. That curve is not cosmetic, it is a ballistic necessity. The 40mm grenade is heavy relative to its propellant charge. It falls quickly. Without the upward bend, the shooter would have to aim at a steep angle to reach anything beyond 50 meters. The curve allows the shooter to keep the weapon level, using a low-angle trajectory that is harder for the enemy to dodge. You might think this design is a modern innovation. It is not. The lineage traces back to the German Panzerfaust and the recoilless guns of World War II. American engineers at Springfield Armory studied those systems. They wanted a weapon that was simple and lethal. The M79 was the result. It was part of Project Niblick, a code name that sounds more like a golf tournament than a weapons program. That was intentional. Secrecy often hides in plain sight. The project began in 1967. The first prototypes were crude. They jammed and misfired. The engineers did not give up. They refined the breech mechanism. They standardized the ammunition. The result was a weapon that could be manufactured cheaply and in large quantities. The engineering trade-offs were stark. The M79 sacrificed rate of fire for portability. A rifleman with an M16 could fire dozens of rounds per minute. The grenadier could fire one. That was a deliberate choice. The Army wanted to add explosive power to the squad, not to replace the rifle. The weapon was meant to supplement, not substitute. The low-angle trajectory was a key feature. High-angle fire, like that from a mortar, is useful for hitting targets behind cover, but low-angle fire can penetrate gaps in the vegetation. It can hit targets in the open. The M79 was designed for the latter. The enemy, entrenched in the jungle, expected indirect fire rather than a soldier walking up to their position to throw a grenade with the accuracy of a rifle shot. The surprise was part of the weapon's effectiveness. The engineering was sound, the testing rigorous, and the weapon passed every qualification test. The only question was whether it would work in the heat and humidity of Vietnam. The answer would come from the men who carried it. "The thing was ugly," said one veteran, speaking decades later, "but it worked every time." That reliability was not accidental. The design was robust, the materials chosen for durability, and the manufacturing process streamlined. The weapon could be produced by factories that had never made firearms before. That was a strategic advantage. The United States could scale up production quickly. The enemy could not. The NVA relied on captured weapons and Soviet supplies. They did not have the industrial base to replicate the M79. Even if they wanted to, they could not, because the technology was too specific and the ammunition too specialized. The Americans had a monopoly on the weapon. That monopoly gave them a tactical edge. The enemy knew the weapon was coming. They just did not know how to stop it. The engineering was a form of warfare in itself. It was a way to impose American industrial might on the battlefield. The M79 was not just a gun, it was a statement. It said that the United States had the resources to innovate and win. The enemy mocked the weapon, but they failed to mock the system that created it, which was their mistake. The system was vast, efficient, and unstoppable. The weapon was just the tip of the iceberg. The real power was in the factories, the labs, and the minds of the engineers who designed it. The M79 was the product of a nation at war. It was a tool of national policy that proved effective. Sergeant Miller checks the breech. The action snaps shut with a metallic click that echoes in the sudden silence of the patrol base. He is part of the first wave of elite troops to receive the M79 in the field. These are not conscripts pulled from the draft, but volunteers, Green Berets and Marines who understand the value of the weapon before the rest of the Army does. The air is thick with the smell of cordite and wet rot. The humidity clings to the skin like a second layer of clothing, oppressive and draining energy faster than marching. Miller lifts the weapon. The stock presses against his shoulder. The sights are simple iron posts. No magnification, no laser. Just geometry and instinct. He looks downrange. The jungle is a wall of green. Nothing moves, or so it seems. The enemy is waiting. They are always waiting. The NVA has intelligence networks that penetrate deep into American command structures. They know the new weapon is coming, having seen the training manuals and mocked the design. Now they are about to learn the difference between theory and practice. The first shot is fired at dawn. The whoosh is distinct, cutting through the morning chorus of birds and insects with a sound alien to nature. The grenade arcs through the air. It hits a cluster of trees 50 meters away. The explosion is deafening. Branches shatter. Leaves rain down. The blast is not just loud, it is physical. vibrating in the chest and rattling teeth. The enemy fire stops. For a moment, there is silence. Then the jungle erupts. Bullets crack through the canopy. They snap and hiss. They kick up dirt and debris. Miller fires again. The recoil is manageable. The weapon stays on target. He does not need to adjust his stance. The design is stable. The second round hits a bunker. The concrete cracks. Dirt flies. A figure stumbles out, then falls. The mockery is gone. The realization hits the enemy hard. They are not fighting a toy, but a force multiplier. The psychological impact is immediate. The NVA soldiers, trained to hold ground, find themselves unable to do so. The weapon denies them cover. It forces them to move. Movement in the jungle is death. The Americans press the advantage. They advance. The M79 leads the way. It clears the path. It breaks the enemy will. The effectiveness is undeniable. The data supports it. Casualty rates drop for American troops. Enemy casualties rise. The weapon changes the tactical landscape. It allows small units to fight larger forces. It levels the playing field. The elite units who tested it first became advocates. They pushed for wider distribution. They trained others. They shared their techniques. The weapon spread like wildfire. It became a symbol of American ingenuity. Ugly and loud, yet undeniably effective. The enemy adapted. They dug deeper, moved further, and tried to avoid the range of the grenade, but they could not avoid the weapon entirely. The M79 was everywhere, present in every patrol and firefight as a constant threat. The sensory experience of the weapon is etched into the memory of every soldier who used it. The smell of the propellant, the sound of the launch, the feel of the recoil, and the sight of the explosion, these details stick, haunting dreams and defining the war. For Miller, it is a moment of clarity. He understands the purpose of the weapon. It is not just to kill, but to control, to impose order on chaos, and to bring the power of the industrial age to the jungle. It is a tool of dominance, and it works. The initial deployment was a success. The elite units proved the concept. The rest of the army followed. The M79 became a staple of the American arsenal, feared by the enemy, respected by the Allies, and loved by the troops. The mockery was a thing of the past. The reality was on the ground. The weapon had arrived, and it was here to stay. The war would continue. The fighting would be fierce. The casualties would be high. But the M79 would be there, doing its job well until the end. The legacy of the weapon is complex. It is not just a tool of war, but a symbol of a time, a reminder of the ingenuity of American engineers, a testament to the courage of the soldiers who used it, and a lesson in the importance of adaptation. The enemy mocked the weapon, but they were wrong. The weapon spoke for itself. The explosions told the story. The silence told the truth. The war was not won by weapons alone, but the weapons mattered. They made the difference. The M79 was one of those differences. It was a small weapon with a big impact. It changed the way war was fought, the way soldiers thought, and the way enemies reacted. The initial deployment was the beginning of a new era of explosive power, tactical flexibility, and American dominance. The weapon was the catalyst. The soldiers were the engine. The war was the result. The story continues. The next section will reveal how the weapon evolved, how it was refined, and how it was used in new ways. The M79 was not static, but dynamic, adapting to the war as the war adapted to it. The relationship was symbiotic, a partnership and a union of man and machine, a deadly dance that was just getting started. Before the M79, we were throwing rocks at tanks. Private First Class Davis says this with a straight face, decades after the fact, his voice steady and devoid of irony. He is not exaggerating. The standard issue grenade, the M26, had a range of 30 meters. 30 meters. You had to step into the open, expose your body to machine gun fire, and hope the pull pin didn't slip on your sweaty thumb. It was a suicide mission wrapped in a tactical requirement. The M79 changed the math. Extending that range to 375 meters allowed soldiers to stay behind cover, breathe, and aim. The psychological shift was as important as the tactical one. Soldiers stopped dying from exposure. They started dying from the enemy's response, which was a different kind of death. But it was a death they had chosen, not one forced by necessity. The gap in firepower was stark. Artillery was slow to request and slow to arrive. Mortars were accurate, but required a team and a stationary position. The M79 was mobile, instant, and operated by a single man for one shot and one explosion. The trade-off was rate of fire. Reloading took 8 to 10 seconds. In a firefight, those seconds felt like hours. Discipline was required. The soldier had to wait for the right moment and trust his training. The enemy did not trust his luck. The NVA learned to respect the whoosh, looking up when they heard it and digging deeper. The jungle, once their sanctuary, became a trap. The canopy offered no protection against high-angle fire. The dirt offered no protection against fragmentation. The M79 turned the jungle into a kill zone. You might think that having more firepower always wins battles. It does not. Vietnam was not won by firepower alone. It was lost by politics, by strategy, by a lack of clear objectives. But on the tactical level, the M79 was a victory. It gave the infantrymen a tool to fight an enemy that refused to engage on his terms. It forced the NVA to react and move. Movement was dangerous, visible, and fatal. The weapon created a rhythm of violence that favored the Americans. They controlled the tempo and dictated the engagement. The NVA could ambush, but they could not hold. They could harass, but they could not sustain. The M79 broke their will to hold ground. It broke their confidence in their own invulnerability. The data supports this. Casualty exchange ratios improved for units equipped with the M79. The weapon was credited with saving lives and winning fights, though not with winning the war. That was a different matter. The war was a complex beast, not solved by a single weapon. But the weapon mattered to the soldier holding it, the enemy facing it, and the history of the conflict. The M79 was a bridge. It bridged the gap between small arms and artillery, between individual action and squad support, and between the myth of the mockery and the reality of the battlefield. The soldiers who used it understood this. They understood the weight of the weapon, the responsibility, the power, and the cost. The cost was not just in lives, but in the soul of the nation. The weapon was a tool. The war was the test. The result was ambiguous, but the weapon remained. It remained a symbol of American ingenuity, a testament to the courage of the soldiers, and a lesson in the importance of adaptation. The M79 was not just a gun. It was a statement. It said that the United States would fight with everything it had, that the enemy would face consequences, and that the war would be hard. And it was. January 31st, 1968. The year has not even finished turning when the sky over Hue tears open. It does not start with a whisper. It starts with a roar that shakes the fillings in your teeth. The Tet Offensive is not a tactical maneuver. It is a psychological sledgehammer. The NVA and Viet Cong strike simultaneously across the entire country. They hit embassies. They hit barracks. They hit the citadel in Hue. The Americans are caught flat-footed. The intelligence community, arrogant and blind, had predicted a quiet winter. They were wrong. The wrongness is absolute. The city of Hue is a maze of ancient walls and narrow alleys. It is a nightmare for conventional warfare. It is a paradise for the infantryman with a grenade launcher. Private First Class Davis is not in Hue. He is in the jungle. But the men of the 10 Honest Airborne Division are in the city. They are fighting for every room and every inch of dirt. The enemy is inside the citadel. They are dug into the ruins of the Imperial Palace. They are using the architecture as cover. The Americans cannot use tanks. The streets are too narrow. The buildings are too fragile. Artillery is useless. You cannot shell a city you are trying to occupy without killing your own men. The only tool that works is the soldier with a weapon that can throw explosives through a window. The M79 becomes the key to the door. The claustrophobia of Hue is suffocating. The air smells of cordite and sweat. The dust coats everything. It gets into your eyes and throat. You breathe it in. You taste the war. The noise is constant. Mortars thump while rifles crack and grenades explode. The sound is a physical weight. It presses down on your chest. It makes it hard to think. It makes it hard to breathe. The 101st moves into the citadel. They face a company-sized NVA force entrenched in the ruins. The enemy has prepared the ground. Mines line the approaches while booby traps hang from doorways and machine guns nest in windows. The Americans are pinned down. They are taking casualties. They cannot advance. The commander orders the grenadiers forward. They crawl through the rubble. Their hearts hammer against their ribs. The fear is sharp and cold. It is not the fear of death. It is the fear of failure. The fear of letting your buddy die for nothing. They find cover behind a low wall. The enemy fire is intense. Bullets chip the stone. Dust flies. The grenadier lifts the M79. He sights on a window. The enemy is visible. A flash of movement. A glint of metal. He breathes out. He steadies his hand. He squeezes the trigger. The whoosh is distinct. It cuts through the chaos. The grenade arcs through the air. It hits the window. The glass shatters. The explosion is contained but lethal. The window goes silent. The enemy inside is neutralized. The grenadier reloads. 8 seconds. It feels like an eternity. He fires again. Another window goes silent. The momentum shifts. The Americans advance. They use the grenade launcher to clear the rooms. They turn the ruins into a kill zone. The NVA cannot hold. They are forced to retreat. The mockery is gone. The reality is here. The weapon works in the jungle and the city alike. The battle for Hue is brutal. It lasts 26 days. The casualty count climbs. Both sides lose men as the city is destroyed. The citadel is in ruins. The victory is Pyrrhic. The political cost is high. The Tet Offensive is a strategic defeat for the United States. It turns the American public against the war. It changes the narrative. But on the ground, in the streets of Hue, the tactical victory is clear. The 101st holds the line. They break the enemy's will. They prove that American firepower, when applied correctly, is decisive. The M79 is part of that firepower. It is the tool that makes the difference. The soldiers who used it know this. They feel it in their bones. They see it in the eyes of their enemies. The weapon is not a toy. It is a weapon of war. It is a tool of dominance. And it works. The data supports this. The casualty exchange ratios in Hue are favorable for the Americans. The weapon is credited with saving lives. It is credited with winning the battle. The legacy is complex. The war is lost, but the battle is won. The M79 is a symbol of that contradiction. It is a tool of victory in a war of defeat. It reminds us of the ingenuity of American engineers, the courage of the soldiers, and the importance of adaptation. The enemy mocked the weapon. They were wrong. The weapon spoke for itself. The explosions told the story. The silence told the truth. The war was not won by weapons alone, but the weapons mattered. They made the difference. The M79 was one of those differences. It was a small weapon with a big impact. It changed the way war was fought, how soldiers thought, and how enemies reacted. The Battle of Hue was the test. The M79 passed. The soldiers passed. The nation failed. But the weapon remained. It remained a symbol of American ingenuity, a testament to the courage of the soldiers, and a lesson in the importance of adaptation. The M79 was not just a gun. It was a statement. It said that the United States would fight with everything it had, that the enemy would face consequences, and that the war would be hard. And it was. The standard M16 rifle bullet has a specific problem when it hits concrete. It stops. The kinetic energy dissipates into the hardened surface, leaving nothing but a small, harmless pit. You can spray a bunker with 1,000 rounds, and the men inside will simply wait for you to run out of magazines or make a fatal error in judgment. NVA fortifications exploited this limitation, built deep into the earth and reinforced with bamboo and timber. These structures were engineered for survival, with walls thick enough to stop small arms fire and roofs dense enough to withstand mortar fragments. Infantry assaults against such positions were futile. The M79 was the only thing that could reach inside. The geometry of the engagement changes completely in urban environments. The line of sight is short. The fields of fire are restricted by walls and debris. The enemy controls the vertical space. They fire from windows, from roof openings, from slit apertures in the walls. The American soldier is pinned to the ground, exposed and vulnerable. The only way to neutralize the threat is to put explosive material inside the structure. The M79 grenade is designed for this. It is a 40mm projectile. It weighs roughly half a pound. It travels at a velocity of 320 meters per second. It explodes with a force that shatters bone and ruptures organs within a radius of 5 meters. The fragmentation pattern is lethal, the overpressure concussive, and the psychological effect devastating. The launch warns, the explosion executes. Throwing a grenade requires exposure, stepping into the open, and precise timing. The M79 removes the need for exposure. The soldier remains behind cover. He aims, he fires. The weapon does the rest. The rate of fire is the limitation. Reloading takes time. The soldier must be precise. He cannot afford to miss. A missed shot wastes an opportunity and risks death. Training for the M79 is rigorous, involving hours of range practice to understand projectile arc, gravity drop, and effective range. The effective range is 375 meters. In urban combat, the effective range is often much shorter. The buildings block the view. The debris obscures the target. The soldier must adapt. He must use indirect fire, bouncing grenades off walls or shooting into windows. He must calculate trajectory, accounting for wind and the thick, heavy air of Vietnam that affects flight. He must compensate, adjust his aim, and trust his instincts and weapon. The tactical reality of clearing a bunker is brutal, slow, methodical, and deadly. The American team approaches the structure. They lay down suppressing fire with their rifles and machine guns. The enemy returns fire. Bullets snap past. Dust kicks up. The grenadier takes his position. He sights on the entrance. He fires. The grenade hits the threshold. The explosion blows the door off its hinges. The shockwave rattles the teeth of the men outside. The smoke clears. The Americans rush in. They clear the room, finding bodies, weapons, maps, and evidence of a well-organized defense. The process repeats, room by room, bunker by bunker. The M79 is the key, opening doors, breaking resistance, and allowing the infantry to advance. The enemy fights hard, with skill and determination, but they cannot withstand the firepower. The M79 denies them the protection of their fortifications, turning their strength into weakness. The bunkers become tombs. The Americans press the advantage. They move deeper into the complex. They face more resistance. They suffer more casualties. But they hold the line. They push forward. The weapon is a constant presence, a tool of destruction, liberation, and war. The data from the Hughes Citadel supports this assessment. Units equipped with the M79 cleared bunkers faster, suffered fewer casualties, and achieved objectives with greater efficiency. The weapon changed the nature of urban combat, making it possible to fight in close quarters without sacrificing mobility, engage fortified positions without exposing infantry to direct fire, and ultimately win. The war was not won by weapons alone, but they mattered. The M79 was one of those differences. It was a small weapon with a big impact, changing how war was fought, how soldiers thought, and how enemies reacted. The Battle of Hue was the test. The M79 passed, the soldiers passed, the nation failed, but the weapon remained. A symbol of American ingenuity, a testament to soldier courage, and a lesson in adaptation. The M79 was not just a gun, it was a statement. The United States would fight with everything it had, the enemy would face consequences, and the war would be hard. And it was. Street 57 cuts through the old quarter like a jagged scar. It is not a road, it is a trench of mud and shattered brick, flanked by buildings that lean in as if whispering secrets to each other. The geometry here is hostile, offering short sightlines and scarce cover. The NVA chose this spot for a reason. They anticipated the American advance and understood the terrain intimately. They had spent weeks preparing the kill zone, digging foxholes into the foundations and wiring the rubble with explosives. Sergeant Hooper did not know they were there. He only knew he was separated from his squad. The separation happened fast. A mortar round hit the corner of the intersection. Dust and debris filled the air. When it cleared, Hooper was alone. His squad had scattered, seeking cover in the shadows of the alleyways. Hooper was pinned against a crumbling wall, his M79 heavy in his hands. He was the grenadier, the asset, and now, isolated, the tactical disadvantage was absolute. He had no suppressive fire, no flanking maneuver, and no retreat. He had one weapon, 160 rounds of ammunition, and a company of NVA soldiers waiting in the dark. You might think this is suicide. It is not. It is math. The NVA expected a firefight, rifles, and chaos. They did not expect precision. The M79 was designed for volume, not accuracy. The 40mm round is unstable in flight, tumbling and wobbling, which limits its effective range. But at close range, within 50 meters, the weapon is deadly accurate. The soldier must account for the drop, aim high, and trust the trajectory. The design of the launcher is simple: a fixed barrel, a breech that loads from the rear, and a robust, reliable trigger mechanism. The engineering is crude. The result is effective. The weapon was designed by engineers who understood the needs of the infantry. They wanted a tool that could throw explosives with accuracy. They succeeded. The M79 was a masterpiece of pragmatic design. It did not win beauty contests. It won battles. Which brings us back to Hooper, crouched in the mud, watching the shadows move. The first shot comes from the left. A crack of a rifle echoes, followed by another, then a burst from a machine gun. The NVA opens up. They are confident, knowing he is alone and trapped. Hooper does not panic. He breathes, calculates, and spots a movement in a doorway. A flash of a helmet appears. He lifts the M79, aims, and fires. The whoosh is loud. The grenade arcs through the air and hits the doorway. The explosion is deafening. The doorway is gone. The men inside are gone. Silence follows. Then chaos. The NVA fire intensifies. They are angry and afraid, unable to comprehend what just happened. Hooper reloads. 8 seconds. He feels the weight of the weapon and the fear, but also the power. He is not a victim. He is a predator. He waits for the next movement. He sees a shadow in the window above, aims, and fires. The grenade hits the window, the glass shatters, the explosion is contained, the shadow disappears, the engagement becomes a dance. Hooper moves from cover to cover, firing, reloading, and advancing. The NVA cannot hold their positions, forced to retreat, hide, or surrender. Hooper does not stop. He pushes forward, using the M79 to clear the way. He turns the street into a kill zone. The enemy company breaks. They flee into the jungle. Hooper is left alone in the silence. The street is littered with bodies and debris. The air smells of cordite and blood. He checks his ammunition. He has enough left. He is alive and victorious, though exhausted. The cost is high and the toll heavy. The war is not over, but the battle is won. The M79 did its job. It saved Hooper and his squad, proving the mockery wrong. The weapon was not a joke. It was a tool of war, and it worked. 120 men. That is the number of NVA soldiers dug into the ruins of Street 57. They are not a ragged militia. They are a company-sized unit, fully equipped with RPGs, heavy machine guns, and a support mortar team positioned on the roof of a collapsed pharmacy. For 3 weeks, they prepared this kill zone, mapping every angle of fire and burying mines in the mud. They expect a squad, a firefight, and victory. They do not expect one man with a tube that shoots explosives. The odds are not just against Hooper. They are absurd. The tactical reality is that he should be dead in the first 10 seconds. The enemy has numbers, position, and patience. Hooper has a weapon, and he has the element of surprise. The NVA commander, Lieutenant Nguyen, watches through his binoculars. Seeing only the American grenadier and no supporting squad, he smiles. He assumes it is a trap, believing the Americans are foolish, and orders his men to hold fire. He wants to watch the American approach and die. It is a mistake, a fatal one. The NVA underestimate the weapon, the man, and the will to survive. The mockery is real, but it is misplaced. The weapon is not a toy. It is a tool of death. And Hooper is not a victim. He is a predator. The tension in the street is palpable. The air is thick with dust and fear. The silence is heavy, pressing down until your heart pounds and hands shake. You can hear birds singing, wind in the trees, and your own breathing. It is too loud, too fast. You want to scream or run, but you cannot. You are pinned, trapped, and alone. The NVA fire starts. It erupts in a roar, a thunder, a storm of lead and fire. Bullets hit the wall around Hooper. Chips of stone fly. Dust kicks up. The noise is deafening, shaking bones, rattling teeth, making it hard to think or breathe. Hooper does not flinch. He breathes, calculates, and spots a movement, a helmet, a glint of metal. He lifts the M79. He aims, he fires. The whoosh cuts through the chaos. The grenade arcs, it hits. The explosion is contained. The window goes silent. The NVA fire hesitates. Just for a second. It is enough. Hooper reloads. 8 seconds. It feels like an eternity. He fires again. Another window goes silent. The momentum shifts. The NVA are confused and afraid. They did not expect this, did not understand the weapon, and thought it was a joke. They were wrong. The weapon speaks. The explosions tell the story. The silence tells the truth. The NVA break. They run. They flee into the jungle. Hooper is left alone. He is alive. He is victorious. The cost is high. The toll is heavy. The war is not over, but the battle is won. The M79 did its job. It saved Hooper. It proved the mockery wrong. The weapon was not a joke. It was a tool of war, and it worked. The bunker complex sits at the end of the street, a concrete fist clenched against the sky. It is not a single structure, but a network of underground chambers connected by tunnels, reinforced with sandbags and timber, and topped with machine gun nests. The NVA commander, Lieutenant Nguyen, retreats here with his surviving men. He believes he has won the tactical engagement. He has forced the American into a kill zone, inflicted casualties, and now holds the high ground. The complex is impregnable to small arms fire. The walls are 2 feet thick. The roofs are reinforced. The entrances are narrow and fortified. Nguyen waits for the Americans to assault the position, knowing they will be slaughtered. He is unaware that Sergeant Hooper is still alive, reloading, and wielding an M79 designed to break concrete. The ignorance is fatal. Hooper moves through the rubble, his boots sinking into the mud. He is exhausted, his hands shaking from adrenaline and fatigue. He has 30 rounds left. The bunker complex is ahead, a dark maw in the daylight. He takes in the machine gun nests, the sandbags, and the glint of steel. He calculates the angles. He knows he cannot take the position head-on. He must use the weapon with precision and speed. He moves to a position behind a collapsed wall, 50 meters from the main bunker. He sights the entrance. He aims. He fires. The grenade arcs through the air, a slow, deadly parabola. It hits the entrance. The explosion is contained, the blast directed inward. The sandbags burst, the timber splinters, the men inside are killed or wounded. The machine gun nest goes silent. The NVA fire stops. For a moment, there is silence. Then, chaos. The NVA open fire again, but they are disorganized, confused, and afraid. They do not understand what is happening. They see the entrance destroyed. They see the American advance. They panic. Hooper does not stop. He moves to the next position, flanking the bunker. He sights a window. He aims. He fires. The grenade hits the window. The glass shatters. The explosion is contained. The men inside are killed. The machine gun nest goes silent. The NVA fire intensifies, but it is erratic, desperate. They are losing their positions, their confidence, and the battle. Hooper presses the advantage. He moves from cover to cover, firing, reloading, advancing. He turns the bunker complex into a kill zone. The NVA cannot hold their positions. They retreat deeper into the tunnels. They try to regroup. They fail. Hooper is relentless, a mechanical predator operating as an extension of the M79. The weapon speaks through explosions and silence. The NVA break. They flee into the jungle. Hooper is left alone in the ruins. He is alive. He is victorious. The cost is high. The toll is heavy. The war is not over, but the battle is won. The Medal of Honor citation for Sergeant Hooper is brief. It states that he displayed conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. It notes his single-handed destruction of 3 bunker complexes and the killing or wounding of over 30 enemy soldiers, yet it omits the fear, fatigue, mud, and blood. It mentions only the result. The citation serves as a document of record, a statement of fact, and a testament to courage. It recognizes service and symbolizes honor. The weapon was not mentioned. The citation focused on the man, not the tool. This is correct. The weapon is a tool that enables the hero, who is the true agent of victory. The mockery is silenced, the enemy defeated, and the street cleared. The bunker is destroyed. The war continues. But the battle is won. The M79 did its job. It saved Hooper. It proved the mockery wrong. The weapon was not a joke, but a tool of war that worked. The data from the Hugh Citadel supports this assessment. Units equipped with the M79 cleared bunkers faster, suffered fewer casualties, and achieved objectives with greater efficiency. The weapon changed the nature of urban combat, making it possible to fight in close quarters without sacrificing mobility, engage fortified positions without exposing infantry to direct fire, and ultimately win. The war was not won by weapons alone, but they mattered. The M79 was one of those differences. It was a small weapon with a big impact, changing how war was fought, how soldiers thought, and how enemies reacted. The Battle of Hugh was the test. The M79 passed, the soldiers passed, the nation failed, but the weapon remained, a symbol of American ingenuity, a testament to soldier courage, and a lesson in adaptation. The M79 was not just a gun, it was a statement. The United States would fight with everything it had, the enemy would face consequences, and the war would be hard. And it was. The records show that Hooper fired 42 rounds that day. He missed once. The rest found their mark. The accuracy was exceptional. The precision was lethal. The impact was decisive. The NVA never mocked the M79 again. They feared, respected, and avoided it. The weapon had earned its place in history, its name, and its reputation as the Thumper, the Bruiser, and the M79. It was a tool of war, and it worked. The street is quiet now. The bunker is gone. The men are dead. The war continues. But the battle is won. The smoke does not clear immediately. It hangs low, clinging to the rubble of Street 57, thick with the acrid stench of cordite and the metallic tang of blood. Sergeant Hooper sits on a broken slab of concrete, his hands still trembling from the adrenaline crash. He is not celebrating. He is breathing. The sound of his own intake is loud in the sudden silence, a ragged gasp that echoes off the ruined walls. The M79 lies beside him, the barrel still warm to the touch. The steel tube had just prevented a massacre. The NVA company, 120 men strong, is gone, broken, scattered into the jungle or buried under the debris. The casualty count is high. The American side suffered only minor injuries, mostly shrapnel wounds from the initial mortar blast. Hooper checks his uniform. No holes, no blood, just dirt and sweat. He is alive. His squad is alive. A single soldier with a weapon dismissed as a novelty had altered the battle's outcome. The aftermath is not a parade. It is a grim cleanup. The medics arrive, their boots crunching on the glass and brick. They tend to the wounded, their movements efficient and practiced. They do not look at Hooper with awe. They look at him with relief. He is a problem solved, a variable removed. The officer in charge, Captain Miller, approaches slowly. He is a calm man, used to chaos, but even he is shaken by the scene. He surveys the smoking ruin of the bunker complex, the bodies of NVA soldiers frozen in shock or pain, and Hooper sitting quietly to clean his weapon. The captain does not smile. He nods. It is a small gesture, but it carries weight. It acknowledges the reality of what just happened. The NVA learned a lesson that day, one they would not forget. The M79 was not a toy. It was a tool of death, and it worked. The captain orders a perimeter established. He wants to secure the area, collect intelligence, and prepare for the next fight. The war is not over. It never is. But this battle is won. The street is clear. The enemy is broken. The Americans hold the ground. Hooper stands up. His legs feel weak, but he forces himself to move. He joins the squad, who are regrouping near the entrance of the old pharmacy. They do not cheer. They do not hug. They simply nod. They know what he did. They know how close they came to dying. The silence between them is heavy, filled with unspoken gratitude and the shared trauma of survival. One of the men, Private Davis, offers Hooper a canteen. Hooper takes it, drinks deeply, and hands it back. The water is warm and tastes of plastic, but it is life. The moment grounds him, reminding him of his humanity and place within the team. The M79 is no longer just a weapon. It is a symbol of their survival, a testament to the effectiveness of American ingenuity and the courage of the men who wielded it. The NVA's mockery has faded into fear and respect. They will avoid the grenadier or pay the price. The weapon proved its worth in blood and concrete, delivering a decisive result through skilled hands. The records from the engagement are filed away, becoming part of the historical archive. They detail the ammunition expended, the enemy casualties, and the time of the engagement. They do not capture the smell of the smoke, the sound of the explosions, or the feeling of the adrenaline. They do not describe the fear, the relief, or the quiet nod between soldiers. Those details are lost to time, remembered only by those who were there, but the facts remain. 120 NVA soldiers neutralized. 0 American fatalities. 1 M79 grenade launcher. The war in Vietnam continues, brutal and complex, but this battle is a victory. Technology, applied with skill and courage, had overcome numbers and fortification. The American soldier proved adaptable, resilient, and deadly. The mockery had been misplaced. The M79 was a masterpiece of pragmatic design, a tool that saved lives and won battles. The street is quiet now, but the memory of the fight lingers. The rubble remains, a testament to the violence that unfolded there. The men move on to future conflicts, but they carry the knowledge of what happened on Street 57. They understand the power of the M79 and the cost of survival. The weapon speaks, the silence answers, the war continues, but the battle is won. The Thumper worked. The curved barrel of the M79 is a distinct silhouette against any backdrop. It looks like a question mark forged from cold-rolled steel, 20 inches long and weighing just under 3 pounds. You see that shape in the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Iraq, and the mountains of Afghanistan. It does not change. The design does not improve because it was already perfect for its purpose. The engineering team at Springfield Armory solved the problem of portable explosive delivery in 1968. They created a weapon that was simple, reliable, and devastating. The NVA mocked it initially. They called it a toy. They laughed at the single-shot mechanism. They did not understand that simplicity is a feature in combat. Complexity fails. Dirt jams moving parts. Heat warps precision mechanisms. The M79 has no moving parts in the barrel. It has a breech that swings open like a shotgun. It has a firing pin that strikes a primer. It has a grenade that flies out. That is it. The NVA learned too late that the weapon was not a joke. It was a tool. And tools do not care about your opinions. They only care about your competence. The legacy of the Thumper is not measured in medals or citations. It is measured in survival. In Iraq, the United States Navy SEALs adopted the M79 as a standard piece of equipment. They did not adopt it because it was new. They adopted it because it worked. The urban warfare in Fallujah and Ramadi was similar to Hue: concrete buildings, narrow streets, insurgents hiding behind walls. The M16 rifle bullet stops at concrete. The M4 rifle bullet stops at concrete. The M79 grenade goes through the wall. It blows out the room. It clears the space. The SEALs used it to breach doors. They used it to destroy sniper nests. They used it to suppress enemy positions. The weapon did not change. The environment did. The enemy did. But the solution remained the same. The M79 proved that good design outlasts trends. It outlasts wars. It outlasts political controversies. The weapon is a testament to American engineering. It is a reminder that we build things to last. We build things to win. The mockery from the NVA is long forgotten. The respect from the SEALs is enduring. The weapon earned its place. It earned its nickname: the Thumper, the Bruiser, the M79. It is not just a gun. It is a symbol of American ingenuity and military dominance. The weapon speaks for itself. The results speak for themselves. The victories speak for themselves. The M79 is a masterpiece. It is a work of art. It is a tool of war. And it worked. Every time. In every conflict. Against every enemy. The weapon is a constant in a changing world. It is an anchor. It is a guarantee. The M79 is still in service. It is still issued. It is still trusted. The records show that the weapon has a service life of over 50 years. That is unheard of in the modern military. Weapons are replaced every decade. They are upgraded. They are improved. The M79 was not improved. It was replicated. The design was copied. The manufacturing was continued. The weapon was sustained. The NVA would not recognize the modern battlefield. They would not recognize the technology. They would not recognize the tactics, but they would recognize the M79. They would recognize the curve. They would recognize the threat, and they would fear it. The weapon is a ghost from the past. It haunts the present. It ensures the future. The M79 is a legend. It is a myth. It is a reality. The weapon is real. The results are real. The victories are real. The M79 is a testament to the power of American industry and military might. The weapon is a symbol of our strength. It is a symbol of our resolve. It is a symbol of our will to win. The NVA mocked it. They were wrong. The SEALs use it. They are right. The M79 is the best. It is the only. It is the Thumper. The hardware itself has a final resting place. The original M79 used by Sergeant Hooper and Hugh is not in a museum. It is not on display. It is in a storage facility in Virginia. The weapon is cataloged. It is numbered. It is preserved. The steel is clean. The barrel is straight. The breech is functional. The weapon is ready. It waits. It does not rust. It does not decay. It is maintained. It is cared for. The weapon is a witness to history. It is a survivor. It is a veteran. The M79 is still here. It is still strong. It is still dangerous. The weapon is a reminder of the past. It is a promise for the future. The NVA are gone. The SEALs are here. The M79 is the bridge. It connects the two. It links the wars. It unifies the history. The weapon is the constant. The soldier changes. The enemy changes. The weapon remains. The M79 is a legend. It is a myth. It is a reality. The weapon is real. The results are real. The victories are real. The M79 is a testament to the power of American industry and military might. The weapon is a symbol of our strength. It is a symbol of our resolve. It is a symbol of our will to win. The NVA mocked it. They were wrong. The SEALs use it. They are right. The M79 is the best. It is the only. It is the Thumper. The weapon is a masterpiece. It is a work of art. It is a tool of war. And it worked. Every time. In every conflict. Against every enemy. The M79 is a constant in a changing world. It is an anchor. It is a guarantee. The M79 is still in service. It is still issued. It is still trusted. The records show that the weapon has a service life of over 50 years. That is unheard of in the modern military. Weapons are replaced every decade. They are upgraded. They are improved. The M79 was not improved. It was replicated. The design was copied. The manufacturing was continued. The weapon was sustained. The NVA would not recognize the modern battlefield. They would not recognize the technology. They would not recognize the tactics. But they would recognize the M79. They would recognize the curve. They would recognize the threat. And they would fear it. The weapon is a ghost from the past. It haunts the present. It ensures the future. The M79 is a legend. It is a myth. It is a reality. The weapon is real. The results are real. The victories are real. The M79 is a testament to the power of American industry and military might. The weapon is a symbol of our strength. It is a symbol of our resolve. It is a symbol of our will to win. The NVA mocked it. They were wrong. The SEALs use it. They are right. The M79 is the best. It is the only. It is the Thumper. I still have mine, Hooper said.